Last week we talked about praise, the importance of praising the Lord. This week, based on the time of the year, 4th of July, there's a component when we think about our country, thinking about all the things that have gone on for our country to be what it is. It's a country that has done a lot of sacrificing. And this morning, I want to talk with you about the power of sacrifice. I want to start this message by making this statement to you. When we think about sacrifice, you can't do everything. You can't do everything. Now, the fact that you can't do everything means that you're going to have to make choices with what you do with your time. And while there's all these dreams, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do that, some things are going to have to be cut out. Thus, we begin to talk about a life where if we're going to accomplish the things we really want to accomplish, the things that really matter, we're going to have to sacrifice some things. Thus, there is no success without sacrifice. There is no success without sacrifice. If you take the word success, it starts with sacrifice. If I was to use an acrostic here, success starts with sacrifice, but success also ends with sacrifice. Wherever you find success, you're going to find testimonies of people who sacrificed. John Maxwell says this statement: you have to give up to go up. Anyone who wants to make a move in life, to accomplish more, to make a bigger difference, they're going to have to learn to give up things. And a lot of people find themselves stuck at this point in life because they love all the little things they've got going on. They don't want to turn loose from any of those little things, but then the opportunities come and they have to pass them because they're not willing to give up where they're at. If you want to go up, you're going to have to give up. When we look at this word sacrifice, the definition that we would find in one dictionary says a loss or something you give up, usually for the sake of a better cause. To sacrifice is to give up something. Someone else had placed in a dictionary these words: a surrender of something of value. To sacrifice is to surrender something of value as a means of gaining something more desirable, but watch this, or of preventing some evil. Sacrifice. Someone is making a decision to give up something of value. We know some people will give up their lives to prevent evil. We know about giving up something so that other things will be better. Matter of fact, it helped get us to a point this morning of understanding what does it really mean to sacrifice. I want you to use sacrifice in a sentence. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds. Think of a sentence that you can use sacrifice in, and then I want to hear it. Anyone. Use the word sacrifice in a sentence.
Jesus sacrificed His life for our salvation.
Jesus sacrificed His life. Boy, that's powerful right there. Of all the illustrations we could have of what it means to sacrifice, He laid down, gave His life, He died. Someone else. Sacrifice in a sentence.
Baseball is the only sport where they willfully sacrifice a player.
Okay. We'll talk about that in a few moments. Someone else. Use sacrifice in a sentence.
My parents sacrificed a lot of their time to help me with watching Noah.
My parents sacrificed a lot of their time to help watch my son Noah. That's a great use of sacrifice. Somebody else. Remember, there's free will of man, and then there's the choosing of Carson. Come on, Patty. Come on.
I think of moms who sacrificed to stay home and raise their children.
Hey? Dan?
I'll sacrifice an afternoon nap so I can play golf today.
They could do the same thing.
Reality.
I choose to sacrifice golf for an afternoon nap.
You only have to play ball.
The parents sacrificed their vacation so their child could attend camp. The father sacrificed his golf game so he could attend his child's recital.
Done that.
Done that. The soldier sacrificed his life that we might enjoy freedom. And Mike's already given us the one about Jesus. Sacrifice. It's a word we use. It's a word that is part of our lives. If there's going to be things happening, someone's going to have to decide to sacrifice. There are two events that I'm going to take a moment to talk about this morning that kind of help again explain a little bit more. And the first one, interestingly, Brian, is baseball. Because of the All-Star game coming up, you know there's a category for sacrifices. Whenever this game was started back in the 1800s, they determined right off the bat that the way the game is played is that we will allow a player to bunt, to sacrifice their at bat to move a runner. And the game can be played in the idea of small ball. Dan is a scorekeeper, and if you look at a scorebook, sometimes you'll see a player, I love this kind of analogy, a player walks, he then steals second, he then is sacrificed to third, a sacrifice bunt moves him over, the runner's at it first, and then a guy hits a fly ball out to right field, and he scores on a sacrifice fly. Never got a hit, but the runner scores. In baseball, there's a category where people are awarded. Eddie Collins is in the Hall of Fame for having 512 sacrifice bunts. That means he came up and he gave himself up. He got almost an intentional out so that a runner would move. We'll talk more next week about baseball and how that plays out. But when you watch baseball, it's an essential component. And I remember getting coaching, and my kids, all of them, like, don't make me bunt, don't make me bunt, don't make me bunt. And I'm like, every one of you need to know how to bunt because some point in the game, it may be necessary for you to do what's best for the team. And if I need one run right now, I don't need the home run. That's exciting, but you're going to be swinging for the fence. Most likely, you're going to miss. What I just need to do is lay down a bunt, move the runner, and we'll get that person in. So baseball talks to us about sacrifice, but then let's go back for a moment. Yesterday, we celebrated the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Well, you know those who signed the Declaration of Independence made tremendous sacrifices with their lives. I mean, you know the Declaration of Independence. Second paragraph starts, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, by the way, if I could just make one change of the Declaration of Independence, I would change that word happiness to the pursuit of righteousness. Righteousness then brings the happiness, but that pursuit of happiness really makes a mess for a lot of us. But you know this sentence, but have you read the entire Declaration? I put it on my Facebook page yesterday. I'm amazed at how many people have no clue what's in it. They know this statement, but what's really in the Declaration? Well, the rest of it then goes down, and they outline all these reasons why King George III is such this horrible person. He's a tyrant. We need to throw him off. But you know how it ends? You know how the Declaration of Independence ends? And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. The Declaration of Independence is going to be finalized on July the 4th. But on July the 2nd is when the vote took place. And when that vote took place, the next day, John Adams would write his wife Abigail, July the 3rd, 1776, and said these words, "I am well aware of the toil and blood and treasure that it will cost us to maintain this declaration and to support and defend these states." Adams understood on the day that they were making these decisions to be an independent nation, it was going to cost them toil, blood, and treasure. There's no way of getting around it, folks. Sacrifice was necessary for the United States to win the Revolutionary War. They were going to have to sacrifice their treasure, they would have to sacrifice their energy, their time, and yes, their lives. Washington was not a signer of the Declaration of Independence. Why was he not on that great document? Because he was already in the battlefield. And when he left to go to the battlefield in 1775, he made one request, that the Continental Congress would pay his expenses, but he would not accept a salary. He understood to be part of that great army that was going to have to take on England in these desperate times, he would not be able to have a salary. He said, "Don't pay me, I'll do it on my own, but I do want my expenses taken care of." When it comes to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, I'm not sure if you know how tight the vote was. We sometimes have this thought, everybody in 1776 wanted to be free from England. Not everybody wanted to be free from England. There were a lot of oppositions to the Declaration of Independence. And as that vote's going to take place on July the 2nd, there's a state that can cause the Declaration of Independence to go down in flames. And that state is Delaware. As the vote is going to be taken, you know, they always do the preliminary, all right, are you going to go, what are you going to do? Well, Delaware only ended up having at that Congress that day 2 voters. And they were split. And if it was split, it means that it's a nullified. They don't go for it. And so that night, that day, July the 1st, a message is sent to a guy by the name of Caesar Rodney. Caesar Rodney is in Delaware, 90 miles away, and he is told, you've got to get to Philadelphia. A vote is going to take place, and we need your vote to get Delaware to say yes. If you've ever picked up the quarter, when they did the state's quarters, there's the state quarter of Delaware. Now, they are the first state. That's for the Constitution. That's for the Constitution. Delaware was the first state to ratify the Constitution, 1787. But on the quarter, Delaware wanted for their state symbol, for everybody to think about Delaware, think about Caesar Rodney, and he's riding a horse. What's significant about this man riding a horse? Because on July the 1st, he gets a message he's got to be in Philadelphia for the vote on July the 2nd. He's got to cast the deciding vote for Delaware to say yes to the Declaration of Independence. He gets on his horse, he rides through the night to get to Philadelphia, and what makes the story even more significant is it became a torrential downpour, a horrendous thunderstorm that he has to ride through. He arrives in Philadelphia, comes into Constitutional Hall, and there he's still in his boots and his spurs when he cast the vote for Delaware that gave the deciding vote for the Declaration of Independence to be ratified. What makes the story even more significant is that as a representative for Southern Delaware, he was not supposed to vote yes. But he was not a person who went with the polls. He was a statesman, and he voted yes for the Declaration of Independence, even though his people had said they didn't want independence. November comes, there's a new election, and guess who gets voted out of office? He lost his job because he voted for the Declaration of Independence. When the war is over and the country now has its own independence, his state realized this guy was right all along. and he became governor and would be one of the great leaders of Delaware. But he had to sacrifice tremendously to be there, and even when he voted for the Declaration, he had to sacrifice his position. Our country was founded by men who were willing to sacrifice. 17 of the men who signed went on to fight in the Revolutionary War. George Walton of Georgia was wounded and captured in the Battle of Savannah. 5 signers were captured by the British. Richard Stockton of New Jersey never recovered from his incarceration by the hands of the British loyalists. He died in 1781, never getting to see the dream that he had for our nation. 12 had their homes ransacked and burned. Thomas Nelson, for instance, recommended that Washington fire on his house in Yorktown because General Cornwallis had gone in, taken over Yorktown, and commandeered his home. As the American army got there, Nelson said, "Fire on my house." And his home is being destroyed so that the Revolutionary War would come to an end. Carter Braxton, along with Nelson, both of Virginia, lent large sums of their personal fortunes to support the war, and they never were repaid. Thomas Jefferson, I just saw this week, that when he died, here's the author of our Declaration of Independence. When he died, his debt was worth in today's dollars $2 million. He dies on July the 4th, 1826, 3 weeks later. Monticello, that beautiful piece of property, that most incredible, beautiful home, all was sold to pay off his debts. These were men who sacrificed greatly for us to have the freedoms we have. I repeat the last statement of the Declaration of Independence. And for the support of this declaration with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor. And I guess I say all this morning, 2015, let's earn what they did for us. Let's don't waste this great opportunity to have a nation that really makes a difference for God. This morning we see some examples of sacrifice. Let's go to the Scriptures. There is the call to sacrifice. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. We're supposed to be living sacrifices. How does that word really play out? Well, another version says it this way: I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercy of God, that you present your bodies a living offering. Your life is to be an offering to the Lord. An offering to the Lord. Yeah, one of the problems about being a living offering, though, is we don't have to take it quite to the level of a sacrifice like Jesus, a sacrifice like an animal in the Old Testament that gave their life completely. We can choose how much of a sacrifice we will be. For instance, have you heard the story about the chickens and the pig? They had a conversation one day in the barnyard. Chicken said to the pig, "We're thinking about opening up a breakfast joint." "Well, what you going to call it?" "Eggs and bacon." "Eggs and bacon, huh? Yeah, you want to join us, pig? Let's have us a breakfast joint. You know how it works. We'll provide the eggs, and you provide the bacon." Well, the pig thought about this, and the pig said, "I'm not sure I'm really for this. Because what you're saying is, I'd be committed, but you don't want to be involved." Are you more like the pig this morning when it comes to Jesus Christ? Totally committed to Him? Or more like the chickens, just involved? This morning, when we talk about sacrifice, let me give you a couple thoughts, a few examples this morning. I want us to think about some people in the Bible. I give you the statement from Thomas Paine, obviously not in the Bible, but he made this statement: "What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly." With that statement, I thought about a guy by the name of David. David, in 2 Samuel chapter 24, has made another blunder. He made quite a few. And God has now decided to judge Jerusalem because of David's blunder. David is beside himself. Lord, I can't. Please stop. Don't do this to all the people. A number of people are dying. There's a plague. And so he gets told by a prophet, go out and make an offering to God. And so in 2 Samuel 24:24, then the king said to Araunah, but I will surely buy it from you for a price, nor will I offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God with that which costs me nothing. That which cost me nothing. There was a field, and David was told to take that field and put an altar there. It's there in Jerusalem where the temple is now. This would become the temple, where the temple would be built. But as David went there, the man there, Araunah, he said, you can have it. David said, no, hold on. I'm getting ready to do something for God here. And I'm not going to do this cheaply. It's going to cost me something. I'm not just going to take it from you. I don't want you to give it to me. I want to pay for it. And that's always been a challenge for me right there, that when it comes to doing the things of God, does it cost me something? Is it something I'm just going through the motions? Am I just involved? Or am I like the text says, you know what, this is taking a commitment from me. This is going to change my life. If I'm really going to be a part of God's work, this is going to change my life. We think about when it comes to giving. You know, some people give. Some people give sacrificially. Some people just write a check and, it's no big deal. Bill Gates may write a check for $1 million and everybody's like, well, what's the big deal of $1 million? He's got billions. It's no big deal, but it sure sounds like a lot to us, $1 million. Jesus saw this happening one day in the temple. Luke 21:1, and he looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw also a certain poor widow putting in 2 mites. Translate that, 2 pennies. 2 pennies. It's hardly anything at all. So he said, truly I say to you that this poor widow has put in more than all. For all these out of their abundance have put in offerings to God, but she out of her poverty put in all the livelihood she had. Out of her livelihood. She gave everything she had. You know how she was living? She was living when Jesus taught us to pray, give us this day our daily bread. Dan is a financial planner. I believe in financial planning. I want money, and you see all these commercials about how much money do you want when you retire, and if you'll put this amount here, down the road you'll have this, and we need to be saving money for a rainy day. My grandmother always said that, save money for a rainy day. And we need to have money down the road when we retire so that we can draw it out, so we have something to be living on more than just Social Security. But Jesus said the way you pray is, give us this day our daily bread. He wasn't expecting us to live on, we've got all this huge amount of money in savings. He was expecting us to live day by day trusting Him for everything we have. That's a totally different mindset. We live differently, by the way, in America, don't we? Because most people this very day are not living paycheck to paycheck. In this world of 8 billion people, tell the truth now, think with me, most people are not living paycheck to paycheck. We think that's horrible right there, to live paycheck to paycheck. We want to have enough that's more money coming in to have to live paycheck to paycheck. Most people are living from day to day, meal to meal. What a place to live, though. Here's this woman. Jesus says, you know what she's doing? She says, God, you get it all. And today I'm going to trust you to now provide for me one more time to find food, to find a way to make a little money so that I can have bread to eat this evening. This lady is sacrificing so that the work of God goes forward. Just an example, not saying every person's going to live this way, just saying this is what Jesus commended, though, for someone when it comes to giving. She says, these people who say, listen, I'm giving this great amount. He says, no, you just gave out of abundance. Check this lady out, how she sacrifices and trusts me. And there's another person this morning that I want us to highlight. If I was going to put together an all-star team of Christians from the early church, his name would be on my list. His name is Epaphroditus. Are you familiar with Epaphroditus? It's one of those unsung heroes, but he's an all-star. This is how Philippians 2:25 starts out on Epaphroditus. Yet I considered it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother, fellow worker, and fellow soldier, but your messenger and the one who ministered to me, to my needs. Okay, that opening statement doesn't tell us a whole lot about really what's going on in this man's life. This all sounds really, really, really positive, doesn't it? Sure does. He's a great worker with Paul. Paul sent him back to Philippi, but let's get the background. Epaphroditus was a great church member at the church of Philippi. While he served there came a moment of need, an opportunity for someone to take a love offering to Paul over in Rome. Over in Rome, Paul's in prison. He needs some financial help. He needs someone to come and help him out. And they said, Epaphroditus, why don't you, we trust you, take the offering to him and stay there and help Paul minister to his needs. Well, he gets there, and after being there a short time, the one who was supposed to be the helper started needing a lot of help. Epaphroditus got sick. And now instead of being able to help Paul, Paul's having to help him. Well, someone told on Epaphroditus. Word got back to the church of Philippi going, you're not going to believe what happened with Epaphroditus. The man has become a burden. He did not turn out to be a blessing to Paul. He became a burden to Paul. And here he is now over there. Paul's had to take care of his needs instead of him taking care of Paul's needs. And the church becomes very upset. Can you believe we send him to help out, and now he's hurting Paul, not helping Paul? Boy, Epaphroditus, you have blown it. Well, that word now comes back to Rome, and Paul hears that the church of Philippi is all upset about Epaphroditus. Epaphroditus is like, man, I've let everybody down. I got sick, and they're all worried about me being sick and about me not being able to help you. And Paul's like, what in the world? I got this dilemma on my hands. So he says, okay, Epaphroditus, you got to go back. You got to go back. We got to calm things down at the church. And here's the deal. Epaphroditus, you go back, take this letter. As he takes the letter, here's what he puts in the letter. Not only does he say this about Epaphroditus, he says, since he was longing for you all and was distressed because you had heard that he was sick. For indeed he was sick. Notice the statement, almost unto death. But God had mercy on him, and not only on him, but on me also, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow, because here he came to Rome to help Paul out, and then he gets sick there. So Paul's going to be devastated if he dies because he came to help him. Therefore I sent him the more eagerly, that when you see him again, you may rejoice, and I may be less sorrowful. Because listen, don't be disappointed in Epaphroditus. I want you to be happy about Epaphroditus. I don't want to be sorrowful hearing that you are disappointed in him. And then he makes this statement, receive him therefore in the Lord with all gladness, and hold such men in esteem. Verse 29. There's certain people that are to be held in the highest of esteem. These are your all-stars. These are the ones who should have the highest value. Well, what did Epaphroditus really do that caused Paul to say, hold that man in highest esteem? Verse 30, because for the work of Christ, because for the work of Christ, because for the work of Christ, he came close to death, not regarding his life to supply what was lacking in your service toward me. Hold this man in highest esteem. Why? Because for the work of Christ, he did not regard his life. To the point he was willing to almost die. He almost lost his life so that he could do the ministry that God had called him to do with the Apostle Paul. In other words, he gambled with his life. He gambled with his life. On that word right there, it says, not regarding his life. The Greek word is for gambling. He took a risk. He gambled with his life. The hymn writer wrote, must I be carried to the skies on flowery beds of ease, while others fought to win the prize? Am I a soldier of the cross? That's the title of the hymn. Am I a soldier of the cross? Must I be carried on to the skies on flowery beds of ease? Is that what it means to be a Christian? To be carried on flowery beds of ease? While others fought to win the prize. While others get involved and give their best and sacrifice and labor. Give their lives. Jim Elliot came along and made this statement, he is no fool who gives up what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. Yet so many of us are not making those kind of decisions. We want to hold on to those things that seem so important, but they're temporal. The challenge this morning is to be like that pig, totally committed. We looked at this Wednesday night, Revelation chapter 2, verse 2 and 3. I know your works, your labor, your patience, that you cannot bear those who are evil, and you have tested those that say they're apostles that are not, and have found them to be liars, and you have persevered in patience, and again, and have labored for my name's sake, and have not become weary. Twice the word labor. And when you see something like that in a couple of verses, it's got to grab your attention. Why is he saying labor? What does it mean to labor? The word labor here means to sweat. To sweat profusely. They're pouring sweat. They're laboring so hard. They are sacrificing. They're not just working. People can do work, but they are laboring in the work. They're giving everything they've got. Their effort is incredible. They want to see the church of Ephesus to become stronger and have more influence. They're giving everything they got. They're sacrificing. Vince Lombardi made this statement, the harder one works, the harder it is for one to surrender. And the people at Ephesus are having a hard time surrendering. Because they're working hard. They're involved in the work. Not just going through the motions, but they are totally committed. This morning, when we look at this word sacrifice, I want you to know sacrifice will always involve ATS. You know what ATS stands for? I hear about the SATs and all that stuff, but the ATS, and then some. And this morning, my closing illustration is a woman by the name of Rebecca. Rebecca is going to get chosen to be the wife of Isaac. As Abraham's servant shows up there to figure out which woman he is going to ask to come and be Isaac's wife, he puts together a little test. He says, you know what, I got to believe that all the women around here, they're going to be hospitable to me. They're going to see me a stranger, and they're going to say, you know what, if he needs some water, I'll give him some water. So he said, you know what, I'll just walk up to some lady, and I'm going to say, could I have a drink of water? And I just got to believe at that very moment, hospitality is going to be put on display. But I need someone who's more than just hospitable. I need someone who is going to go the extra mile. And that test will be, I wonder if she'll be willing on her own to water the camels. Now you got to believe there's probably at least 10 camels that this servant has brought. How much can a camel drink when a camel is thirsty? Is this going to be a couple gallons, or is this going to be 100 gallons? We're thinking it's probably going to be about 100 to 200 gallons of water she's going to need to draw. And here's what the Bible says. She said, drink, my Lord. Then she quickly let her pitcher down to her hand and gave him a drink. And when she had finished giving him a drink, she said, I will draw water for your camels also. Make sure you see the plural. Until they have finished drinking, not just a little. Then she quickly emptied her pitcher into the trough, ran back to the well to draw water, and she drew for all his camels. She did more than was expected. She labored and labored and labored. Worked and worked and worked. And when you look at someone like her, you have to say she did and then some. What's your ATS score? When it comes to serving the Lord, on this 4th of July weekend, when it comes to not serving your country, boy, we could stand up here and give a speech, could we not? For you that have been in the military, you have heard them call forth your total dedication. If you've been involved in sports, you've heard a coach stand and talk about, I need 110%. There been one could ever give that. But they want total dedication to the game. Total dedication to the country. But what about total dedication to the Savior? What does he get? What does he get? Does he get, I'm involved, I'll give a little, I'll work a little, or is he getting total sacrifice, total dedication? I'm giving my all to the Lord because his cause is greater than any cause. So the challenge this morning, last week, praise. But every now and then, let us be stirred. Let us be like that church at Ephesus. Oh, not the church that then loses its first love. We can't do that. Can't do that. But let us be like that church, though, that is laboring to make the difference. Laboring for his work. Because, folks, while we could lose a war, we could handle it. While we can lose a game, we definitely could handle it. But when a soul is lost, because we are not giving our best, we're just simply playing games around the cross, a soul is lost for eternity. We're in something that's far greater than a nation, far greater than a sport. We're in the church of the Lord Jesus Christ, who has a message for a world. That Jesus Christ did sacrifice his life. Why did he sacrifice that life? Because we could never pay the debt. We could never pay the debt. And he wants every one of us to be able to enjoy heaven, but the debt has to be paid. And so he sacrificed for us. Now you and I are his ambassadors. You and I are his representatives to take the gospel to the world. I'm involved a little bit. I'm committed wholeheartedly. Where do we stand this morning? Let's pray. Father, I pray this morning that you will challenge our hearts. Every one of us to have on our resume, not to brag, not to boast, but that we have on our resume that we're living a life of sacrifice. Giving up those things that are worldly and unimportant to do the things that are heavenly and that are eternal. And I pray that you'll keep adjusting our priorities, that we will serve you with a whole heart. This morning, your heads bowed, eyes closed. Just take the time to examine. Lord, am I really sacrificing to the level that is needed for the cause of Christ to get to the world? To make the difference in my family, to make the difference in my neighborhood, where I work. And Father, I pray for stirring in this room this morning. May we never be complacent. May we never be apathetic. May we pledge ourselves like a group of people did years ago for a nation, may we pledge ourselves, our lives, our fortunes, our reputations, for your cause. We pray this in Christ's name. Amen.